Hi everyone, Drew with Drew Talks. So right now the Lewis and Clark County Health Board is trying to implement something in this county I guess they're portraying it as combating systemic racism. They are going to be at the county commissioners meeting on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. And what Drenda, who is the county health officer, wants to implement is something called an inclusiveness policy. She wants an inclusiveness working group in this county, and she wants the county to hire Widerstand Consulting, and I'll include their website so you can check them out, to help them with this process. I want to kind of call this stuff what it is. So we've been seeing a lot about systemic racism, a lot of inequality issues in the United States has been talked extensively about these past few years. I think that everyone can agree that racism is bad and that it does exist. There's really no question about that. My issue is I feel like one of the worst vehicles for ending racism would be the government and bureaucrats. The government is the one who brought us legalized slavery. It was legal. They also did segregation, and I don't want to pick on the Democrats too much because you know I'm not a Republican, but that party has struggled with racism for a long time. They did not want the Jim Crow laws revoked. They were the party of the South. They also implemented the war on poverty. And if you know anything about President Johnson, he used all these terrible racial slurs, and I'm not even going to quote him because I don't like them coming out of my mouth. But he basically said that if I can get that certain group on welfare, they will vote Democrat for 200 years. You need to understand that a lot of times in government, if you want to control a people group, you control the funding. Because then you get to say what they can and cannot do. And I know it's brutal, but you get somebody on welfare, then you can control, I can control when you have these shots. I can control what kind of health care you get. So this is something I find very concerning. The government is not a good vehicle to end racism. And I really feel like we were on the road to really just making racism very, very small, minor issue. You're never going to eliminate it completely in mankind, but almost just something not even worth talking about in the 1960s. And then the government swooped in with affirmative action, and it kind of changed the whole landscape. I don't think it should be any business of the government what ethnicity you are, yet they can legally ask on all their paperwork what's your ethnicity. So I think we have a big problem there to talk about. But I think the answer is looking at people as individuals. A man is responsible for his own actions. He's not responsible for group actions. That is the way you end racism. You stop collectivism. The problem with that is people who are very, very Marxist in their thinking. They need the collective idea to get their viewpoint, their idea of what a utopian society should look like across. So they cannot look at people like that. They like to put them in boxes. These people over here, they are Asian Americans. These people over here, these are Native Americans. Da 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 da. Everyone's in a box, and we can stereotype them based on where they go and where they fit. I don't agree with that at all, 100%. I think that continues the idea of this group is somehow a little better than this other group. And of course, I am sure that there are many highly educated people out there who are trying to make the world into the image of whatever professor they had in college that are going to tell me I'm wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about because I didn't have a professor teach it to me. Whatever, fair enough. Let's talk about what's happening in Lewis and Clark County. So we had our 2021 health assessment that Lewis and Clark County does. I'm going to include it in the notes. It's 84 pages long. Woo. Very nice colors, quotes from the community, graphs everywhere, bar graphs, pie graphs. And for those of you who don't live in Helena, there is an army of people who live here, and what their job is they do surveys and they do math and they go around and they make these little reports with these graphs and bars and statistics, and they actually think these are real jobs and they get paid to do it. This is their life. And I think this also promotes this idea people have that in some sort of commune, their job would not be like working like a slave in the fields, that they'd be somehow wandering around with a clipboard doing surveys. It's not a real job. As we go through the health assessment for the year, all glorious 84 pages of jargon, reading this is like reading reports I had to do in high school where I was told it had to be 20 pages. And so I took 1 page of work and just hammered it to death to get the 20 pages. Like, what is cancer? Why is cancer important? What is diabetes? Why is diabetes important? Ba, 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 ba. It's something else. So if you wish to dive into this glorious assessment that I'm sure we all paid for, well spent money, you can take a look at this. And I'm just going to say this. I don't know when these people expect all their work to change the world, because it really hasn't happened yet. I really feel if you want to change the world, raise kids that are good people. Watch the single mom's kids while she goes to work. You know, make some money so that you can give it to people who actually need it. That impacts a community. Your little bar graphs don't. Anyway, let's go through this. So when you get to page 61, you know with all this stuff, all this about we're trying to promote health, how can we help the community? You know, coming up, we're either going to have climate change or racism. So here it comes. So we kind of dab into environmental health a little bit, but right about page, here it is. Oh, sorry, yeah, page 61 of the report. We get into systemic racism. They're also pulling a lot of their information from the American Public Health Association put out something that's called Racial Equality in Public Health. And this is a really fascinating read about, it's only 4 pages long, and I'm putting it in here too. And it talks about things we can do to end racism. One that's really interesting is they have on here protect moms and babies of color. Maternal mortality statistics in the U.S. are disturbingly high when compared to rates of other similar countries. But this epidemic is experienced even more acutely by women and pregnant people of color. Research shows that Black, Native American, and Hispanic moms all face much higher rates of maternal mortality than white moms. And it goes on, they want the Black Maternal Health Omnibus Act of 2021 would build on existing progress made in maternal health with provisions that would invest in social detriments of health, growth, and support the prenatal workforce, improve data collection, and promote maternal vaccination. Yeah. This bill would support research efforts into understanding the impact of climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic on women and pregnant people of color. They also say in this form that we know the mortality rate was higher among African Americans than it was among people with pasty skin like me. But they say that the reason that is because of racism. It's just a pretty heavy segue, like, yeah. So as I read these reports of things they want to implement, they're using great words, great language, the ideas sound wonderful. I remember Ron Paul once said, the worse a bill is, the better the name is going to be. So the worse something is they want to do, the better they're going to dress it up. So like the Patriot Act was a terrible bill, but you can't vote against something called the Patriot Act. And this, with the racial equality stuff, I feel like it's a vehicle for something else. What exactly, I'm not always sure. But like I said, critical race theory, a lot of people have said that that is where it originally was called critical theory, and it had to do with the collectivism of the workers against the, bosses, and it had to do with communism, and that's what originally it was taught in the colleges, but now they've slapped the name race on it and made it something else. I honestly think we've spent enough time pussyfooting around this. The truly interesting thing that we are dealing with is a lot of times people with terrible ideas will have really great sounding arguments. Somebody with a bad idea doesn't always make it sound like they have a bad idea. They think it's a great idea, and they love to skew it a little bit to make it sound like it's a great idea. Racism is a terrible idea, but just like the people who promoted segregation, there is arguments that they can make it sound pretty. This is one of those. And people say it's reverse racism. I don't think it is. I think that these people are just plain racist. And I hate to say that, but they have done studies. If they want to do the graphs and studies and statistics, I'll pull out my own. There was a study done that discovered that liberals will dumb down the words they use when speaking to minorities, and conservatives won't. And it's because they're racist. The reason they're trying to convince us that everyone's racist and that there is so much racism in all societies is because they are racist in their hearts, and they don't want to take ownership for that ugly part of them. So they have to make it everybody else's problem. It's not just them, it's everybody. And really what it comes down to is, what do you want your county to go towards? Do you want your county to be focused on individual liberties? Do you want your county to be focused on, I belong to myself, I am not part of a group or a cluster, I am not part of the community rights people? Or do you want your community to be painted in the image of the collective idea where we can just put people into groups? I don't like this inclusiveness policy. I think we should actually call it what it is. I'm a white knight who thinks I'm better than these other groups, and they definitely need my help policy. That's exactly what it is. It's for the White Knights Anonymous of this country, who unfortunately are kind of snobby because they have a bachelor's in something and a minor in arrogance, probably have very rarely ever spoken to somebody who thinks differently than them, and they live in this little circle world, and they think that people like me are a fringe minority. But I really feel like it's unfortunate that we have people in power who treat people who don't look at them that they know, like their trophies. Like, oh, have you met my friend Monica? She's Native American. Like, I have to throw that in there because I want you to know how non-racist I am. Sometimes the people who are accusing everybody else of being something are doing it because they're actually that way. So I think you should go check out some of these links I'm going to put in the description for this video, and really ask yourself if this is the way you want our county to go. Do you want to be funding the inclusiveness working group? Do you want to have our health departments continue to work with very vicious, nasty groups like the Montana Human Rights Network, which is a nonprofit out of Bozeman that smears people for no reason? The Widerstand Consulting Group, is that who you want running this county? And if you don't, you need to write your commissioners. I'll put a link there. But it's okay to remind them that not everybody is group thinking like them. So, like I said, go check out all this stuff. Like, share this video, dislike, leave a comment. And who knows when I'll get back on here. But this was important, so I thought you guys needed to hear it. Thanks.